Tonight's WineCast is brought to you by Cafe at the Plaza, Milwaukee's East Side destination for breakfast, brunch, and lunch. It's part of the newly renovated Plaza Hotel located at Cass and State. I've heard there's a good tiramisu French toast. I don't know. Karen will have to confirm that for us today. Hi everyone, I'm Jessica Bell. Happy Wine Wednesday. We're here at my wine school where it is wine your way. So as I was just saying, my sister is in the room. Karen, say hello. Hi. Let us know if we have an echo. I think I figured it out, but like I said, we're no techies, so maybe if there still is an echo, we don't deserve to have a WineCast right now. But everyone say hello to Karen. I don't see any echo problems yet, so I'm very excited. Now Karen's gonna get a lot of airtime. Yeah, she came over and said, "Don't put me on a latte." We had a rough night last night, right? We had a dinner, a 9-course dinner. Karen did a course. I did the pairings, and we're a little slow today.
Yeah, we didn't enjoy the dinner. We worked.
Right, we worked the dinner.
A little tired.
You got it. So we're just bear with us today. And if you're wondering how to say hi to Karen or get to be a part of the conversation, here's where you do it. If you're on our homepage, you'll see off to the right is where everyone will chat in. And you just type in anything under audience. It'll take you to this screen where you can log in or sign up if you don't have a login. And it'll take you to this screen where you will fill in the 5 fields, and boom, you are a part of the conversation. So today is WineCast number 16. This is designed for our wine newbies. These are people who love to want to build a solid foundation in wine. And today on our wine newbie class, we're going to be reading German labels. So we've been all over Europe, and we're going to end our European tour in Germany. So we talked about French labels last week. And you know what's interesting about German labels, they keep changing the rules like every other year, and I'm not exaggerating. There's some big new development, and the intent is to keep it, or to make it more simple. In reality, they just muck it up. So it's a bit of a messy story we're going to go through today, and it's going to take us 3 WineCasts to really get you to the end of it. But we're going to start with the wine newbie level and just give you some basic tools for reading German labels. So we're just really going to scratch the surface, but hopefully give you some good tips on reading those German labels. So let's see. Let's take a look at the front label, actually, of what we're looking at. Well, that's Karen. That's not the front label.
I can pretend to be.
Isn't she a pretty bottle, right? Okay, so we're going to be looking, this is the wine that we're going to be doing today, and it's a simple label, which is great. And from a New World consumer's point of view, there is something very welcoming about this German label, and it's that it has the name of the grape on it. Now, after coming from France, Spain, and Italy, you know, grapes on the bottle isn't an overly common thing. It happens, but it's not very common. Now, we've gone into across the border into Germany, and it becomes a common thing. Often there are grapes on your labels. So Riesling in particular is a very important grape in Germany. In this region, which is the Mosel that we're going to be looking at today, over 50% of the wine, or over 50% of the vines planted are of the Riesling grape varietal. And then in Germany itself, over 25% of the vines are the Riesling varietal. Now, you know, this is a very welcome thing when you recognize the grape, when you know Riesling is a grape. But how about the other grapes, the other major grapes that are grown in Germany, which include Müller-Thurgau, Sylvaner, and of course, for our reds, we see some Pinot Noir. So that might be one that you recognize. And on this label also, we see the name of the producer. So above Riesling, you see Monchhof. And don't worry, I totally slaughtered this name the first time I said Monchhof or something, and someone was very polite and said, no, it's Monchhof. And once you know where this comes from, it'll make a lot more sense why it's called Monchhof, and I'm going to get to that in just a second. But it's a very simple label, which is very welcoming for us. But the interesting thing is that Germans and European labels in general can tell you a lot about the wine if you know what to look for. So we can actually find on this bottle whether it's suggested as a good bottle or a great bottle of wine, what the quality level is. Now that's just a suggestion, that's not always reality, but we can also see whether we can make an educated guess whether it's sweet or dry, and then we can also start to understand style just from looking at this bottle, somewhere on this bottle. And so it's interesting, we can tell a lot from just a German label. We just got to know where to look for it. So let's get you guys typing and interacting with us. So this is our first wine interactive question, and it's meant to get you involved. So use those fingers tonight and get involved. But which of the following grape varietals are not commonly found? Wait, I messed up. It should be one. Which of the following grape varietal, just no S on the end, is not commonly found in Germany? Okay, so that's the first slip up today. We're gonna keep tally how many slip ups I get. So is not commonly found in Germany. So you guys take a look at that list. And while you're doing that, let me just tell you a little bit about this producer. As I mentioned, it's pronounced Monchhof, and it's because it was founded in 1177 by monks. There you go, Monk House. It's the Monk House. So Monchhof, and then it was acquired in 1804 by the current owners right now. And so it just goes to show what kind of history there is in winemaking in Germany. It's got a very long history, and as such, the land has been passed on generation after generation, and each time it's passed on, it splits among family members, and so you have really small holdings in Germany. That's something very common in Germany, which has to do with its history and some other things that we're not going to get too much into now, but just some interesting things. So what are we seeing, Karen, on the first wine IQ? Are they hitting the...
Yeah, everyone's saying D.
Everyone's saying D. You guys rock. I knew you would. So... So that's great. So let's see here. What we want to do is understand then how we can find these different characteristics. So how good it is, and how sweet it is, and perhaps what the style is. And so we're going to go back to what we learned last week in French wine and French wine labels. When we wanted to look for a quality wine, on the label we would look for what you see up here, Appellation d'origine contrôlée. Okay? Well, the equivalent of that in Germany is going to have two, actually. We're going to be looking for two different words when we talk about Germany. And here they are. In German, it's Qualitätswein and Prädikatswein. So those are one of the two words that will come onto quality wine. So let's take a look at this label. Actually, we've got to go to the back of the label to find this. So this is, we're going to flip around the bottle and take a look at the back. And what you want to look for is either Prädikatswein or Qualitätswein. And go ahead and take a look. I'm going to, of course, help you out a little here and give you that nice big green arrow. Give you a little time. I stalled a little, but, you know, we got to keep this thing moving. So there's the Qualitätswein. And just like we talked about with French labels, with the AOC, you want to look before it, the Appellation d'origine contrôlée. Usually before, we saw last week, sometimes it's sandwiched around the name of the region, but here it actually comes before. So we see Mosel Riesling Qualitätswein. So it's telling us that it comes from the Mosel region. So there we go. So we've been able to find that specific word. Now if we go back to those two words that we're looking for, I mentioned there's two quality words, or two words that are going to suggest quality. Qualitätswein is actually a lower suggested quality. It's not always reality, but it's a lower suggested quality than, say, the Prädikatswein. So we're going to be trying a Qualitätswein, which is still quality wine. It's just not fulfilling the rules that you would need to fulfill in order to be a Prädikatswein. So, you know, let's see what we think about the quality of this wine, right? So they're telling us it's a quality wine. They're saying it's not as good as a Prädikatswein, but the only way to really know is to try the wine. So let's go ahead and try this wine. Go ahead, of course, we always look at the color. Take a look at that beautiful wine. Karen and I were talking about how Rieslings are like perfect for the day after a big night of because they're just easy, they're low alcohol, they've got great acid, they're refreshing, you know, that dry mouth, it just, you know, fixes everything. So what do you guys think about the color? Obviously it's a white wine, but it's probably got about a medium lemon, maybe pale lemon color on it. And now we're going to check out the nose, right? So going to wine IQ number 2, wine interactive question number 2, go ahead and give that a smell. Now, we're talking about quality, right? How do we judge quality on the nose? We can actually do that, and you can do it too. I'm going to tell you how. So when you're judging quality on the nose, there's two things you want to look for. One is intensity, and the other is complexity. So intensity, when you smell this, does it smack you in the face? Is it pronounced? Or you really got to get your nose in there to get something. That's one parameter of quality. The other is going to be complexity. So complexity is going to be, are you getting fruit, earth, and spice? Or are you just getting fruit? Fruit would be simple, a simple wine, right? But maybe we get a little bit of everything, and then we're seeing a bit more complexity come through. So I want to hear what you guys are smelling on this wine. And see what you guys think. Anyone coming in yet, Karen?
Let's see. Nope, nothing yet. Okay, well, we just had someone with fruit, medium plus on intensity.
Okay, great. So fruit. So we're seeing a lot of fruit. And that's exactly what I got on this too. A lot of fruit, specifically green fruit, lots of citrus and green apple, and then some minerality. So we are seeing some earth on this, but it's a more simple wine. So it's good quality, but what we might see in that Pratikatz which is the higher suggested quality, is going to be more intensity and complexity. And we're going to be doing that in the next WineCast, which is WineCast number 17. So that's my hook, to get you guys to stay on and watch more. I know it's suspenseful, you know, ooh, what are we going to smell in WineCast number 17? Stick with me, I'll give you a good show. So we want to now look at the other things that we can find on the label, which include how sweet is it? I'll show you how you can tell a good educated guess on how sweet your wine is if it's a Riesling from Germany, and then also what the style is. So let's go back to the back of the label, and what we want to look for is the alcohol. So you guys go ahead, take a look, find out where the alcohol is on here, and that is going to help us figure out the sweetness. So I'm skipping ahead here, so I gotta, let's one second, I just lost my, there we go. I needed the close-up so you guys can see. So the alcohol is 8%, okay? Fairly low, right? Now let's go ahead and give it a sip. So take a sip of this wine. And while you're doing that, let me explain how this is gonna help you understand sweetness. You've gotta understand first the basic building blocks for winemaking. You've got sugar and grapes, and then the yeast that's either present on the grapes or is introduced to the fermenting wine will eat the sugar and convert sugar to alcohol. So to start, let's say we have lots of sugar in the grapes and no alcohol. As fermentation happens, the sugar level is going to go down because it's converting to alcohol. Now you could do it so you go to a bone dry wine where there's no sugar and say 11 to 12% alcohol. That's pretty middle of the road. But let's say in Germany we've got lots of sugar and we got no alcohol, and all of a sudden we stop it halfway, or it just stops on its own halfway. Usually the winemakers are making the decision to stop it, and I'll tell you why in a second. But so now we've got some wine, we got a lot of wine, but we've got some sugar and some alcohol. So when you look at this and you see 8% and it's a German Riesling, anywhere between 8 and 10%, you can probably assume that you're going to be on the sweet side. Now, an 8% for one wine isn't always the same sweetness levels as an 8% on a different wine. And the reason is because some wines start with this much sugar and some start with, that much sugar. So it depends where they start with sugar. But if you're at 8%, you haven't exhausted all of the sugar. So there's going to be some sweetness. If you're around 10 to 12% on your German Riesling, you could kind of go either way. It depends, again, how much sugar it started with. But anything above 11, 12, 13%, you pretty much are going to be on the safe side, saying it's going to be on the drier side. So that's one way we can actually talk about the sweetness levels. Now, if we want to talk about the style of wine on the label, we can do that too. So what we want to be looking for is the region it came from. And if we look at that Qualitätswein, we saw right before it, Mosel, Riesling Qualitätswein, and just below that you see Mosel, where you see that green arrow. That's the region the wine is coming from. And Mosel is one of 13 regions called Ambogbiet. Karen, can you write that in the chat roll?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just kidding.
Okay. I can, really.
She's looking at her notes. Oh my god. You'll see in the next couple WineCasts why she does not have to spell that. It's like, I don't know, it's got like 25 characters in it, and I'm going to slaughter the German language probably tonight. So that's why I asked at the beginning if anyone spoke German, because I need a German tutor, please. But you can go, remember I always tell you guys, go to forvo.com. I used it for a lot of the words tonight just to make sure I'm good with my German speaking skills, but I'm still going to, flounder on this. Okay, so, but she's still attempting to put this in. She got it? Well, close. You're missing an E between the G and the B. Well, she's looking at my notes. My notes are misspelled. Okay, so, but that's close. But you can see it. That's why I was just kind of kidding. But she, of course, being the good sister that she is, she put it in for us. So we'll get to the right spelling, which that's my fault, not Karen's fault. It was my notes I wrote for her. But back to the Mosel. So Mosel is one of the 13 wine regions, which are called Anbaugebiete, and the Mosel is one of the furthest north in terms of location. There's 13 of them, so I'm not going to list all 13, but here are 3 of probably the most commercially found ones, the most commercially important ones. You've got the Mosel, the Rheinhessen, and the Rheingau. Now, when I talk about style with German wines, let's say there's a lot of Riesling, a lot of German Riesling, right? If you have a German Riesling from the Mosel, it's the furthest north. And so the style is usually going to be lighter body, it's going to be lower in alcohol and higher acid. Those are all characteristics that are from a cooler region. Now, as you go down south in Germany, you go to the Rheinhessen and then Rheingau. As you go down, you start to get different flavors and a fuller body. You start to get riper flavors like peach flavors and almost tropical flavors. And then you also start to see fuller bodies, higher alcohols because you're getting more sugar because it's riper, and I already said fuller bodies. So yes, you can see how the style changes as you go from north to south in Germany. You're going to go from a lighter body, higher acid, lower alcohol, to fuller body, higher alcohol, and not necessarily lower acid. It's still going to be very high acid. We're really far north here in Germany. We're at the 50-degree north latitude line. So now you can see how it's easy to look on the label and find not only now the grape, but also the region is going to give you style. The alcohol is going to give you an indication of sweetness. And then if you look for Qualitätswein or Prädikatswein, you can start to understand where that quality level is. Now, the price tag is also going to help. This one comes in at about $16 to $18. And I'd love to actually hear what you guys have to say about this wine, because I want you guys to give it a try and tell me what you think about the sugar and the acid, okay? Because this one is not dry. This is not a dry wine, and there's a reason for that. It's not because they're looking for sweet wines in Germany, but they're looking for balance. So what we want to do is figure out what the balance is here. So go ahead and take a sip again, right? Take another sip. You gotta, you remember, you gotta make my mom happy. She says everyone drink. So go ahead and take a sip. And what we want to talk about is the sugar and acid. So what do you guys find on the sugar and acid on this wine? Karen, what do you think?
When I first take a sip, I'm expecting it to be really sweet, and then it finishes really with high acid. So it's really nice. It's very refreshing.
Yeah, so what we've got going on is that this has got sweetness. So we call it like a medium sweet. It's not dry. It's not even off dry. It's got a good amount of sweetness on it. But it finishes, like you said, super clean, and it's because the acid is so high. And so if this wine didn't have the sugar that it had in it, then it would not be balanced. It wouldn't be good at all. I mean, it would be, your teeth already are going to hurt drinking this wine, but then, you just wouldn't enjoy it at all. So what they're looking to do by keeping the alcohol low and the sugar, retaining some sugar, is to keep balance. Also, think about this light-bodied wine and then put 12% alcohol on it. Again, you'd have a completely out of balance wine. So what they're looking to do is keep the alcohol level low, the sugar a little higher, to balance out what's this naturally high acid wine. So Brian's mentioning the 08 is balanced too. Yeah, you know what's interesting is we've got the 2010, Karen and I have the 2010 right now. And it's, the 2010 was a really strange vintage. If you're ever looking for great reading material about German, go to, his name's Terry Thies. Do you know how to spell that? It's not on the notes. It's Terry, and then Thies is Thiese. look him up. You can find him on the Michael Skurnick website, and he writes great writing about Germany and Champagne, and he talks about the 2010 vintage, and it's fun reading too. There's an IESE, so THIESE. There's an E after the I. So yeah, so check him out if you're interested in the vintage. So thanks for bringing that up, Brian. The 07 is great as well. Well, you guys are like making a great point about these Rieslings. So Brian comes at 08 is balanced. Christine is saying the 07 is great. Rieslings can age, and this is at $16 to $18. This is a Qualitätswein. It's not even a Prachtkutswein, which is the higher level. And yet we'll see these wines age. Why? Because they have lots of flavor. They have acid, and they have sugar. Sugar is a natural preservative. So I love these wines because A, they're great for a big night out the next day after a big night out, but B, they are great for aging, and they will develop beautifully. And they'll keep, even if they won't develop, they'll keep their life for a lot longer than a lot of wines in the same price point.
An interesting point is Christine said that her 2007 is a Prachtkutswein.
Huh. Well, you know what?
So I don't know if you want to talk about
Yep, so Christine mentioned that her 2007 is a Prachtkutswein. Christine, you actually, I'm going to get to this in the next WineCast. What German winemakers do, which I don't necessarily like a lot of times, is they make their labels really similar. So you actually have a different wine. That is a completely different wine than what we've got. We're going to actually have probably the wine you have in the next WineCast. If not, because if it's a Prachtkutswein for you, then it's a different wine. And what happens is German producers often have lots of different wines. So Monchhof has a Qualitätswein, but it also has a couple Prachtkutsweins too. So that's a great point, and that's actually a point. You skipped ahead. That was one point I wanted to make in the next WineCast, is that it's confusing, these labels. So we're going to dive deeper into the next one. Into the next WineCast about all of these terms. We're gonna get really crazy down and dirty on German speaking. You guys are gonna be all German speakers after the ends of these 3 WineCasts. So, but what I want to know is what you guys think about it. If you've got it, let us know food pairings, because these are beautiful food wines. So Karen, you're up first. What would you pair with this?
Wine would go lovely with some fusion cuisines, a bit of spice in the food, or just even a simple salad. It's just very
perfect. Yeah, so salad, because it has such high acid usually, and then fusion, you've got lots of spice, and that sugar plays up really nicely on spicy food. So anyone else out there giving us some suggestions or telling us what you think about the wine? We'd love to know what you think, whether you like it, and then what you do with it. Do you dump it, finish it, buy it, stock it, or save it? Are we seeing anything?
Sushi and scallops.
Ooh, yeah, I like it.
Veal.
Veal, perfect. Yeah, definitely. Great suggestions. So yeah, and then I want to know if anyone, what do you guys think about the wine? I love Rieslings from my mom. I love my mom who loves Rieslings. Mom, I do too. I love Rieslings. You see where I get it from. I adore Rieslings. I mean, there's a lot of really amazing quality Rieslings out there, and I just think it doesn't get the proper representation sometimes. So I'm a big Riesling fan along with my mom. Anything else, Karen?
No, people are just, we got some more food pairings, but we do have a question from Weaver saying, when you say it can age, how long would you suggest it can age?
So good question. I think that's Kim. Kim, yeah, it can age. This one in particular, I wouldn't do more than 5 to 7 years. It just doesn't have the intensity of flavor that you need to age it. But that's still saying a lot for a $16 to $18 bottle of wine. I think it'll hold for 5 to 7 years. Now, when we get into the next wine, that has a lot of flavor, and it's got tons of sugar and tons of acid. We're looking at like 7 to 10 years. I mean, which is really unusual for a lot of white wines. It's not what we expect. So we're 5 minutes away from starting the next WineCast. So we're gonna have to sign off and then sign back on. I'll let you know. I'd say buy it, but you can read me like a book. I love Rieslings, and this is a really great quality Riesling. Great balance on the wine. And next week we're gonna be doing port. So if you're signing off, thanks for joining us for the Wine Newbie. We're gonna be doing the Wine Explorer next, and we're gonna be talking specifically about Prachtkutswein, or what we call quality wines, in the next WineCast. So thanks everyone for joining us. I'm Jessica Bell from My Wine School, where it is wine your way.